Sampson and I followed Ruskin and Sykes out to their car, a forest green Saab Turbo. Ruskin got in the driver's seat. I remembered Sergeant Esterhaus's words in Hill Street Blues. "Let's be careful out there." "You know anything at all about the murdered woman?" I asked Nick Ruskin as we headed on to West Chapel Hill Street. He had his siren screaming, and he was already driving fast. He drove with a kind of brashness and cockiness. "I don't know enough," Ruskin said. "That's our problem, Davies and mine, with this investigation. We can't get straight-dick information about much of anything. That's probably why we're in such a good mood today. You notice?" "Yeah, we noticed," Sampson said. I didn't look over at him. I could feel the steam rising in the back seat, though, heat coming off his skin. Davy Sykes glanced back and frowned at Sampson. I got the feeling they weren't going to become best buddies. Ruskin continued talking. He seemed to like the spotlight, being on the big case. "This entire case is under the control of the FBI now. The DEA got in the act, too. I wouldn't be surprised if the CIA was part of the crisis team. They did send some kinky crackerjack down from their fancy outpost in Sanford." "What do you mean, this entire case?" I asked Ruskin. Warning alarms were sounding in my head. I thought of Naomi again. This is a real bad one. Ruskin turned around quickly and looked at me. He had penetrating blue eyes, and they seemed to be sizing me up. "Understand, we're not supposed to tell you anything. We're not authorized to bring you out here either." "I hear what you're saying," I said. "I appreciate the help." Once again, Davy Sykes turned and looked at us. I felt as if Sampson and I were on the other team, looking over the line of scrimmage, waiting for the ball snap, the crunch of bodies. "We're on our way to the third murder site," Ruskin went on. "I don't know who the victim is. Goes without saying that I hope the victim isn't your niece." "What's this case all about? Why all the mystery?" Sampson asked. He sat forward in his seat. "We're all cops here. Talk straight to us." The Durham homicide detective hesitated before he answered. "A few women, let's say several, have disappeared in a 3-county area, Durham, Chatham, and Orange, which you're in now. The press has reported a couple of disappearances and 2 murders so far. Unrelated murders." "Don't tell me the media is actually cooperating with an investigation," I said. Ruskin half smiled. "Not in your wildest wet dreams. They only know what the FBI has decided to tell them. Nobody's actually withholding information, but nothing's being volunteered either." "You mentioned that several young women have disappeared," I said. "How many exactly? Tell me about them." Ruskin talked out of the side of his mouth. "We believe 8 to 10 women are missing, all young, late teens and early 20s, all students in college or high school. Only 2 bodies have been found, though. The one we are going to see could make 3. All the bodies were discovered in the last 5 weeks. The Phoebes think we're in the middle of what could be one of the worst kidnapping and murder sprees ever in the South." "How many FBI in town?" Sampson asked. "Squad? Battalion?" "They're here in full force. They have evidence that the disappearances extend beyond state lines, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, down into Florida. They think our friendly squirrel abducted a Florida State cheerleader at this year's Orange Bowl. They call him the Beast of the Southeast. It's as if he's invisible. He's in control of the situation right now. Calls himself Casanova. Believes he's a great lover." "Did Casanova leave MASH notes at the murder scenes?" I asked Ruskin. "Just at the last one. He seems to be coming out of his shell. He wants to communicate now, bond with us. He told us he was Casanova." "Were any of the victims black women?" I asked Ruskin. One trait of repeat killers was that they tended to choose their victims along racial grounds, all white, all black, all Spanish, not too much mixing as a rule. One other missing girl is black, student from North Carolina Center University. 2 bodies we found were white. All the women who've disappeared are extremely attractive. We have a bulletin board up with pictures of the missing girls. Somebody gave the case a name. Beauties and the Beast. It's on the board in big letters, right over the pictures. That's another handle we have for the case. "Does Naomi Cross fit this pattern?" Sampson asked quietly. "Whatever the crisis team has established so far." Nick Ruskin didn't answer right away. I couldn't tell if he was thinking about it or just trying to be considerate. "Is Naomi's picture on the FBI bulletin board, the Beauties and the Beast board?" I asked Ruskin. "Yes, it is." Davy Sykes finally spoke. "Her picture is on the big board." Chapter 13. "Don't let this be Scoochie. Her life is just beginning," I silently prayed as we sped to the homicide scene. Terrible, unspeakable things happened all the time nowadays to all kinds of innocent, unsuspecting people. They happened in virtually every big city and even small towns, in villages of 100 or less. But most often these violent, unthinkable crimes seemed to happen in America. Ruskin downshifted hard as we curled around a steep curve and saw flashing red and blue lights. Cars and EMS vans loomed up ahead, solemnly gathered at the edge of thick pine woods. A dozen vehicles were parked haphazardly along the side of the 2-lane state road. Traffic was sparse out there in the heart of nowhere. There was no buildup of ambulance chasers yet. Ruskin pulled in behind the last car in line, a dark blue Lincoln Town car that might as well have had Federal Bureau written all over it. A state-of-the-art homicide scene was already in progress. Yellow tape had been strung from pine trees, cordoning off the perimeter. 2 EMS ambulances were parked with their blunt noses pointed into a stand of trees. I was swept into a near out-of-body experience as I floated from the car, my vision tunneled. It was almost as if I had never visited a crime scene before. I vividly remembered the worst of the Sonergy case. A small child found near a muddy river. Horrifying memories mixed with a terrifying present moment. Don't let this be Scoochie. Sampson held my arm loosely as we followed Detectives Ruskin and Sykes. We walked for nearly a mile into the dense woods. In the heart of a copse of towering pines, we finally saw the shapes and silhouettes of several men and a few women. At least half of the group were dressed in dark business suits. It was as if we had come upon some impromptu camping trip for an accounting firm, or a coven of big city lawyers or bankers. Everything was eerie, quiet, except for the hollow popping of the technicians' cameras. Close-up photos of the entire area were being taken. A couple of the crime scene professionals were already wearing translucent rubber gloves, looking for evidence, taking notes on spiral pads. I had a creepy, otherworldly premonition that we were going to find Scoochie now. I pushed it, shoved it away, like the unwanted touch of an angel or god. I turned my head sharply to one side, as if that would help me avoid whatever was coming up ahead.
FBI, for sure, Sampson muttered softly. Out here on the Wilderness Trail.
It was as if we were walking toward a mammoth nest of buzzing hornets. They were standing around, whispering secrets to one another. I was acutely aware of leaves crumpling under my feet, of the noise of twigs and small branches breaking. I wasn't really a policeman here. I was a civilian. We finally saw the naked body, at least what was left of it. There was no clothing visible at the murder scene. The woman had been tied to a small sapling with what appeared to be a thick leather bond. Sampson sighed. Oh, Jesus, Alex. Chapter 14. Who is the woman? I asked softly as we came up to the unlikely police group, the multi-jurisdictional mess, as Nick Ruskin had described it. The dead woman was white. It was impossible to tell too much more than that about her at this time.
Birds and animals had been feasting on her, and she almost didn't look human anymore. There were no fixed, staring eyes, just dark sockets, like burn marks. She didn't have a face. The skin and tissue had been eaten away.
"Who the hell are these two?"
one of the FBI agents, a heavy-set blonde woman in her early 30s, asked Ruskin. She was as unattractive as she was unpleasant, with puffy red lips and a bulbous, hooked nose. At least she'd spared us the usual FBI happy camper smile, or the FBI's famous smiling handshake. Nick Ruskin was brusque with her, his first endearing moment for me. "This is Detective Alex Cross and his partner, Detective John Sampson. They're down here from D.C. Detective Cross's niece is missing from Duke. She's Naomi Cross. This is Special Agent in Charge Joyce Kinney." He introduced the agent to us. Agent Kinney frowned, or maybe it was a scowl.
"Well, this is certainly not your niece here," she said. "I'd appreciate it if the two of you would return to the cars. Please do that."
She felt the need to go on.
"You have no authority on this case, and no right to be here either."
"As Detective Ruskin just told you, my niece is missing." I spoke softly but firmly to Special Agent Joyce Kinney. "That's all the authority I need. We didn't come down here to admire the leather interior and instrument panel of Detective Ruskin's sports car." A thick-chested blond man in his late 20s briskly stepped up beside his boss.
"I think you're heard, Special Agent Kinney. I'd appreciate it if you leave now," he announced.
Under different circumstances, his over-the-top response might have been funny. Not today. Not at this massacre scene. "No way you're going to stop us," Sampson said to the blonde agent in his darkest, grimmest voice. "Not you. Not your dapper Dan friends here."
"That's fine, Mark." Agent Kinney turned to the younger man. "We'll deal with this later," she said.
Agent Mark backed off, but not without a major-league scowl, much like the one I'd gotten from his boss. Both Ruskin and Sykes laughed as the agent backed down. We were allowed to stay with the FBI and the local police contingent at the crime scene. Beauties and the beast. I remembered the phrase Ruskin had used in the car. Naomi was up on the beast board. Had the dead woman been on the board as well? It had been hot and humid, and the body was decomposing rapidly. The woman had been badly attacked by forest animals, and I hoped that she was already dead before they came. Somehow I didn't think so. I noted the unusual position of the body. She was lying on her back. Both her arms appeared to have been dislocated, perhaps as she twisted and struggled to free herself from the leather bonds and the tree behind her. It was as vicious a sight as I had ever seen on the streets of Washington or anywhere else. I felt almost no relief that it wasn't Naomi. I eventually talked up one of the FBI's forensic people. He knew a friend of mine at the Bureau, Kyle Craig, who worked out of Quantico in Virginia. He told me that Kyle had a summer house in the area. "This shit-heel's real savvy, real smooth, if nothing else." The FBI forensic guy liked to talk. "He hasn't left pubic hair, semen, or even traces of perspiration on either of the victims I've examined. I surely doubt if we'll find much here to give us a DNA profile. At least he didn't eat her himself." "Does he have sex with the victims?" I asked before the agent went on a tangent about his experiences with cannibalism. "Yeah, he does. Somebody had repeated sex with them. Lots of vaginal bruises and tears. Bugger's well-equipped, or he uses something large to simulate sex. But he must wear a cellophane body bag when he does it. Or he dusts them somehow. No pubes, no trace of body fluid yet. The forensic entomologist has already collected his samples. He'll be able to give us the exact time of death." "This could be Betty Ann Ryerson," one of the gray-haired FBI agents within earshot said. "There was a missing person report on her. Blonde-haired gal, 5'6", about 110 pounds, wearing a gold Seiko when she disappeared. Drop-dead gorgeous. At least she used to be." "Mother of 2 kids," said one of the female agents.